Hey there. This is the year 1346. You were just 10 years old, living in a quiet village nestled in the French countryside. Your days begin with the sound of roosters greeting the sun and end with the golden glow of the fire in your family's hearth. Your home is small, wooden walls, thatched roof, but it is filled with warmth, laughter, and the soft smells of bread your mother bakes every morning. If you want to sleep, you must like and subscribe. So you help your father in the fields, pulling weeds from rows of cabbage and carrots. Your little sister runs barefoot through the grass, collecting eggs. You all eat together, seated close, your mother's stories dancing in the candlelight. It's a slow life, but it is good. Each evening, you curl into your straw-stuffed bed, comforted by your father's flute and your mother's gentle lullabies. Everything feels safe. One morning, a merchant visits. His horse looks tired, and so does he. He shares tales of strange deaths in the east. People coughing, fevered, covered in black spots. Your village listens, but few believe. It is far, they say. But things begin to change. The baker sends his son to close early. Church is quieter. Parents speak softly, but you notice their eyes, wide, worried. At night, your mother whispers prayers longer than before. The wind outside feels colder, heavier, and, in your dreams, you begin to see shadows in the fog.
The days grow heavier. The air feels thick, like the sky is holding its breath. Clouds gather more often now, the kind that bring thunder or rain, but quiet gray ones that never seem to leave. You notice fewer children in the village square, fewer people at church. The shepherd's boy hasn't come down the hill in days, and when you ask your mother, she only says he's resting. She doesn't look you in the eye when she says it. That evening, your father nails a piece of wood across the front gate. Just until things calm down, he says, but it feels different. Doesn't ask you to help, and he doesn't smile like he usually does. He checks the barn twice that night. When he comes inside, his shoulders are stiff, as though he's carrying something invisible, but very heavy. Your mother puts bundles of herbs near every window, lavender, sage, rosemary, and burns them so the scent fills the house. She says it will keep illness away. You like the smell, but it clings to your clothes, your hair, your dreams. One morning, you spot a man walking down the road toward the village. He's swaying, as if his feet don't know where they're going. When he reaches the edge of the square, he collapses. No one rushes to help. Everyone watches from windows, silent. The priest and doctor come, their faces covered. You peek through a crack in the shutters. The man does not rise again. Later, the priest lights candles and walks the road alone, whispering prayers that sound more like begging. You wake up one night to whispering voices. Your parents are in the other room. You can only hear fragments. ... 2 more houses shuttered. Shouldn't have let the merchant through, Elodie. Or Emile. What if the fire crackles? Your sister stirs beside you, murmuring in her sleep. Close your eyes tight and pretend you didn't hear. By now, you can feel it too. A shift in the world, like a cartwheel beginning to break. Some families board up their homes. Others leave without a word, walking into the hills with heavy packs and children wrapped in blankets. One afternoon, you spot a row of birds lined up along the fence, all still, all watching. It makes your skin prickle. Your father hangs a charm over the door ears, the one the merchant gave you. He kisses your head afterward, but the kiss feels more like a goodbye than a comfort. And then, one cold morning, the chapel bell rings 3 times, pause, 3 more. Then again, it is not Sunday. Your mother sinks into a chair. Her hands go to her face, and she does not speak. You ask what it means? 3 bells, your father says softly, for a soul that's passed. But they rang 3 times. He nods, his face pale. We don't ask again. The next night, something wakes you. A sound outside soft, like footsteps on frost. You rise quietly and tiptoe to the window. A figure stands at the village gate, a man. He wears a long, dark cloak and a strange mask with a beak like a bird's. You've never seen anything like it. He carries a stick in a bag and he doesn't knock, he waits. After a moment, someone lets him in. He walks with slow steps, pausing at every house. You creep back to bed and curl under the blanket. Your sister's hand finds yours in the dark. You squeeze it tight. You don't sleep again until morning. The wind has changed. It no longer brings the smell of warm bread or sunlit fields. Now it carries something sharper, ashes, maybe, or sorrow. You wake in the early morning and lie still beneath the blanket, listening. No birds, no church bells. Only the soft creak of the rafters above and the distant cough of someone down the road. Your sister still sleeps beside you, curled up like she always is, but even her breathing feels different. Quieter. You sit up slowly, the straw mattress crackling beneath you. Outside the small window, a low fog creeps across the ground, blanketing the village in a ghostly hush. Your mother doesn't hum this morning. She moves about the kitchen with heavy steps. Her hair is tied back tightly, her hands moving quickly, wiping things again and again even, if they're already clean. She gives you a weak smile when you sit at the table, but her eyes are rimmed with red. Your father didn't come in last night. He stayed at the chapel, helping the priest. He returns just as the sun begins to rise. His boots are covered in mud, his face streaked with soot, and his eyes look much older than yesterday. He hugs you tightly, tighter than usual. When he lets go, he sets a small pouch on the table. Dried herbs, a sliver of soap, a vial of something that smells sharp and strange. From the apothecary, he says, for safety. You don't understand how soap can keep sickness away, but you nod. That afternoon, the village is almost silent. Doors are closed, windows shuttered. So only a few people move outside, always quickly, always alone. Even the animals seem quieter, or the chickens barely cluck. The dogs don't bark, or the world feels like it's holding its breath. You stay inside, as your parents asked. Your sister builds a small village out of twigs on the floor, whispering stories to herself. You try to draw on the soot of the hearthstone with a stick, sketching the hills beyond your home. You want to draw them the way they used to look, alive, green, filled with sunlight. At dusk, a knock comes at the door. Your mother freezes. Your father gently pulls the door open just a crack. It's the priest. His robes are wrinkled and stained, his face thin, beard untrimmed. He murmurs something quickly, too quietly for you to hear. Your father nods and steps outside with him. They speak in hushed voices by the garden wall. When he returns, his shoulders slump. Old Morel passed in her sleep, he says. We'll help bury her in the morning. Your mother covers her mouth with her hand and turns away. You remember Morel? She gave you peppermint leaves and told stories about a castle in the sky. Just last week she was sitting in the sun with her cat. Now she's gone. That night, your mother doesn't light a fire. It draws the wrong attention, she whispers. Instead, you sit in the dim room, the only light coming from a small candle on the table. Its flame dances quietly, casting soft shadows on the walls. Your father sits with his head in his hands. Your mother holds you both close. You don't ask for a story tonight. But as your sister drifts off to sleep, you whisper one to her instead. You tell her about the peppermint leaves, the castle in the sky, and a village that wakes in sunlight and song. And as you speak, you wonder if the silence outside will ever end, or if your voice is the last one the night will hear. The bell has stopped. For days it tolled, slow and sorrowful, echoing down the hills to mark each soul taken. Now there is no sound. Not because there are no more deaths, but because there is no one left to ring it. You wake to silence, thick as snow. Your sister clings to you in her sleep, whimpering as if in a dream. Your mother sits by the window, unmoving. The candle has burned low, its wax pooled into a soft puddle. Outside, the morning is gray, with clouds like bruises rolling across the sky. Your father is gone again. He left before dawn with a sack of lime and a shovel. You hear stories from your mother, spoken as if to herself, that he is helping dig the pits now, not just for strangers, but for friends. For neighbors. For people whose names you've written in charcoal on the barn wall while learning your letters. At midday, your mother brings broth to the table. You eat slowly, counting the spoons between breaths, listening to the creaks of the house. It's the only sound. Then something changes. A knock, not hard, not loud, but a knock. Your mother grips your hand and goes to the door. It's a boy just a little older than you, holding a wrapped bundle and shaking. My sister, he whispers. She hasn't moved since yesterday. Please, your mother doesn't answer at first. Then she nods, wraps her shawl tightly and steps outside. She looks back only once, her eyes telling you to stay inside no matter what. You don't see her again until nightfall. When she returns, she doesn't speak. She just sits, her hands red and raw. Your father returns minutes later. He looks at her, then you, and kneels beside the fireless hearth. There's nothing to say, so you sit. You sit for a long time. Then your sister, small and brave, climbs into your lap. Tell me a story, she says. Your voice cracks as you begin. You tell her of a bell, once silent, that rang again not for death, but to call the people back when the sickness passed. You tell her of green grass that grew taller than ever, of birds that returned with their songs, and of a sun that warmed the stones until children could dance barefoot again. She listens, eyes wide. When you finish, she asks, "Is that real?" You don't know. But you say, "It will be. One day." And for the first time in many days, you believe it might. You woke to the sound of coughing. It echoed through the alley like wind through dry leaves, hollow, brittle, endless. Outside, the sky had changed. No longer blue, no longer even white, just gray, thick and heavy, as if the clouds themselves were ill. The old woman who lived 2 doors down was being carried out. Her sons walked in silence, her body wrapped in a sheet. You knew what that meant now. No church bells, no funerals, just quiet, quick. Done. You covered your mouth with the end of your sleeve, something your sister had started doing days ago. Don't breathe too deep, she'd said. It finds you in the breath. In the marketplace, people stood far apart. No shouting, no laughter, just wary eyes and quick hands exchanging bread for coin. The baker left loaves on a bench now, then backed away. You took one and left what silver you had. As you passed the well, a man coughed hard into his hand. When he pulled it back, you saw it. Black. Your chest tightened. You didn't run, but you walked faster. Past the inn, with its boarded-up windows. Past the chapel, where the priest now spoke only through the door. Past the cart of onions tipped on its side, its seller nowhere in sight. At home, your mother sat by the hearth, her hands trembling as she stitched a hole in your sister's cloak. But your sister was not there. You didn't ask. The fire cracked. Outside, the coughing continued, and the sky stayed gray. The frost had retreated, not far, just to the edges of things, tops of fences, the corners of windows. But it was enough. For the first time in weeks, your mother opened the shutters. Light crept into the room like a guest unsure of its welcome. You didn't stop it. In the back garden, something green had pushed through the soil. Just a single shoot. But it was there. You knelt beside it, brushing the dirt gently with your fingers. It wasn't much, some stubborn little sprig, but it meant something you hadn't dared believe in for weeks. That life was still possible. Later that afternoon, your neighbor returned. The one who left to find his daughter in the next town. His eyes were sunken, and he didn't speak much. But he gave you an apple from his satchel. It was bruised, small, and red. You hadn't tasted fruit in days. When the sun dipped low, casting gold through the garden, your mother lit a candle in the window. Others in the village had begun doing it too, one by one. Lights in the dark, you lit another for your sister. For the first time, you didn't cry. You watched the flame flicker. For a moment, it felt like her. Brave, brief, but still burning. In the dirt beside the sprig, you planted a second seed, 'cause the garden would return. So would you? The frost had retreated, not far, just to the edges of things, tops of fences, the corners of windows. But it was enough. For the first time in weeks, your mother opened the shutters. Light crept into the room like a guest unsure of its welcome. You didn't stop it. In the back garden, something green had pushed through the soil. Just a single shoot. But it was there. You knelt beside it, brushing the dirt gently with your fingers. It wasn't much, some stubborn little sprig, but it meant something you hadn't dared believe in for weeks. That life was still possible. Later that afternoon, your neighbor returned. The one who left to find his daughter in the next town. His eyes were sunken, and he didn't speak much. But he gave you an apple from his satchel. It was bruised, small, and red. You hadn't tasted fruit in days. When the sun dipped low, casting gold through the garden, your mother lit a candle in the window. Others in the village had begun doing it too, one by one. Lights in the dark, you lit another for your sister. For the first time, you didn't cry. You watched the flame flicker. For a moment, it felt like her. Brave, brief, but still burning. In the dirt beside the sprig, you planted a second seed, 'cause the garden would return. So would you? The village path, once overgrown with fear and silence, starts to echo with new sounds. Boots, wheels, voices. One afternoon, while you're tending to the garden, you hear a creak of wooden wheels approaching. You look up and see a stranger, his cloak dusty, beard long, eyes tired but kind. Behind him, a cart filled with pots, cloth, dried herbs, and small jars clinks as it rolls over the stone. Your father steps out to meet him, cautious. No one travels these roads much anymore. But the man lifts his hands in peace. A healer, he says, and a teller of news. He stays at the edge of the village that night, cooking a stew over a fire and singing songs in a language you don't know. People come to him slowly, carefully, offering bread, apples, wool. He tells them of other villages, some lost, some surviving, some rebuilding, just like yours. You and your sister sit near the fire and listen. He speaks of the port town where sailors lit candles on their ships and let them drift into the sea, glowing like stars. Of a mountaintop monastery where monks copied prayers by candlelight for those who had no more words left. Of a small city that buried their dead with coins in their hands and rosemary tucked behind their ears. He tells stories not to frighten, but to remind. You see grown men cry. You see women close their eyes as he speaks, lips moving in prayer. Before dawn, the healer moves on, but not before giving your sister a pouch of dried mint and lavender. For dreams, he says. You don't know his name, but you will remember his stories for the rest of your life. After he leaves, your father gathers the village. You must learn again, he says, not just to live, but to remember. So you begin to collect stories. You help your mother write them down, carving letters with ink made from crushed berries. You gather tales from the baker, the widow, the children. What they saw, what they felt, what they lost, and what they found. You ask your sister what she remembers most. The candle in the window, she says. It made me feel like I wasn't gone yet. You nod and write that down too. Why wait to write our Its strings are dusty, but he tunes them slowly, lovingly. When he plays, the music is clumsy at first, but then it warms. Voices join him, yours among them. Songs rise again. And the road once empty brings more travelers, a family with chickens, a young couple with a baby, an old man with books strapped to his back. Each brings something. Each leaves something. And every time someone arrives, your mother bakes a small loaf of bread. Your sister ties a flower to their cart. The village becomes not just a place of survivors, but of stories. You look up at the sky one evening and notice the stars again, clear and bright. They had been there all along, but now you can see them. You sit on the garden bench with your sister beside you, warm bread in hand, the night cool and quiet. And for the first time, you allow yourself a thought you hadn't dared before. Maybe this is not just survival. Maybe this is the beginning of something new. It begins with a folded piece of paper. Your sister finds it tucked beneath a loose floorboard in the chapel when she goes there one morning. She's stronger, now still thin, still tired sometimes, but strong enough to walk alone. You see her from the garden, crossing the quiet path, hair braided, steps light. When she returns, she's holding something. A letter, she says, handing it to you. It's old. The paper is yellowed, the ink faded, but the handwriting is careful. It speaks of love, of fear, of a promise to return. You don't recognize the name signed at the bottom, neither does your father. But your mother closes her eyes when she hears it. Was one of the first to go, she whispers. That evening, your family sits by the fire. You read the letter aloud. It isn't long, but it holds a voice tender, trembling human. Do you imagine the hands that wrote it, the eyes that searched for hope? You imagine the person it was meant for, who never had the chance to read it. And so the next morning, you write one back. You don't know why, just that it feels right. You write? We are still here. The garden is growing. The wind is warmer. I think you would have liked the tulips. We remember you. You leave it in the chapel, under the same floorboard. And soon, others begin to do the same. Letters to fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, strangers. Some are long. Some only a few lines. Some are written by children in crooked words and drawings. Others are signed with trembling hands and tear-stained corners. They become offerings not to the dead, but to the memory of the living. To those who gave shape to the village, even if they no longer walk its paths. One day, the widow places a box beside the chapel door. It fills quickly. You and your sister begin reading them aloud every Sunday. No sermons, no lessons, just voices. The people come, sitting on stones or standing in small groups, listening, remembering, holding each other when the words shake. And slowly, the letters turn from grief to gratitude. One says, "Thank you for teaching me how to plant potatoes." Another, "Your laugh still lives in my kitchen." And one small letter, written in charcoal by a child, simply says, "I miss you, but I'm okay." The box overflows. So you start tying the letters to ribbons and hanging them on the old oak tree at the edge of the village. Its branches bloom with paper and prayer, catching the wind like sails. The tree becomes a monument not of stone but of stories. People travel from other towns to see it. Some bring their own letters. Others sit quietly beneath it, hands folded, lips moving with words they do not write. Your sister calls it the listening tree, and under that tree, your village learns to heal.
Together.
Because now you understand survival is not just breath and bread, it is memory, it is mourning,
Eyes.
it is love that refuses to fade, and it is the courage to write back to the silence. It begins with dust. One warm afternoon, you and your sister are sitting beneath the listening tree, tying ribbons to a new bundle of letters, when the first horses appear at the edge of the village. They move slowly, their hooves quiet on the path, stirring a fine mist of dust in the air. Strangers, you haven't seen many in the past year, not since the sickness first arrived, not since the world seemed to close in on itself. But these are not ordinary strangers. Their clothes are patched but clean. They wear cloaks stitched with bright threads, reds, blues, and golds. One woman rides with a basket full of apples. Another man plays a slow tune on a wooden flute, as he walks beside a cart piled high with blankets and tools. A small crowd gathers as they approach. Your father steps forward, cautious. "What brings you here?" he asks. The oldest of the travelers, a tall man with kind eyes and a braided beard, dismounts and bows slightly. "We are the rememberers," he says. "We carry stories, songs, names that should not be forgotten." A hush falls. You look at your sister. She's already smiling. That evening, the travelers camp just outside the village. They set up a circle of lanterns and invite everyone to join. One by one, they begin to speak, telling tales of the towns they've passed through, towns like yours. Towns hurt, haunted, but holding on. They speak of gardens growing in old courtyards, of children laughing in ruined castles, of songs sung in empty churches, of a man who painted bright birds on the walls of every abandoned home he found, just so the living would not forget color. You and your sister sit cross-legged, listening wide-eyed. Then a traveler with silver-streaked hair opens a large leather book. "You write names here," she says, "of the ones who are lost. Every village we visit, we add more. No one is forgotten, not while we walk." The villagers fall silent. Then your mother steps forward. Her voice is steady as she speaks the name of her cousin gone too soon, with a laugh like river water. Others follow. One by one they speak. Some whisper, some cry. When it's your turn, you name the priest. You never knew him well, but you remember the way he used to nod at everyone, as if saying hello was sacred. And you remember how he stayed until he couldn't. The travelers write each name with care. When the list is done, the book is passed around. You run your fingers over the words, each one a small stone laid gently in the soil of memory. Then the stories begin again. But this time, your village tells them too. Your father tells of the cart he built with your help. Your sister shares how the garden returned. The butcher's daughter sings the lullaby her mother used to hum during the worst nights. Laughter returns. So does dancing. One traveler plays a drum, another juggles with colorful stones. Children chase fireflies between the lanterns. Even your quietest neighbor smiles and claps. The stars above blink like they're listening. The next morning, before the travelers leave, they leave behind gifts, new seeds, strong rope, a pot of blue paint. For the windows, the old man says, so the wind remembers where to knock. Your sister gives them a letter to carry, just one. It says, "Our village survived. We sing again. Come back one day. We'll be waiting." And as the travelers ride away, leaving a trail of music and dust behind, you feel something light flutter in your chest. Not just hope, but the joy of knowing that your story, your home's part of something much bigger now. A patch in a quilt that stretches across the world, a world that is healing. One name, one story, one song at a time. It begins with a string. One soft note from a fiddle, carried on the wind. You're in the garden, pulling weeds near the fence line, when you hear it. Faint at first, so faint you wonder if you imagined it, but then it comes again. A rising tone, sweet and slow, like someone remembering how to breathe. You stand, eyes scanning the village. And there, near the square, a boy plays. He's younger than you, maybe 9 or 10. His fiddle is worn, too large for his frame, but his fingers move with care. Each note seems to call something back, not just sound, but life. Others hear it too. They peek from doorways. They pause at wells, bread in hand. A woman with flour on her apron holds still, listening. Even the birds hush. Your sister is at the window. You see her smile. The boy finishes the tune and lowers the bow. He doesn't say anything, just nods once and walks away. The silence after is strange but not empty. It hums with memory. That night, your father brings out his old drum. It's dusty, the leather cracked, but it still beats true. He taps it softly by the fire.
Oh.
Your mother hums along. You sway with your sister, just a little, like you used to. No one says a word about it, just ... happens. The next evening, 2 girls bring spoons and tap rhythms on a tin pot. The widow whistles, the butcher's son plays a wooden flute. Someone claps and someone laughs. The village doesn't become loud again, not the way it once was, but music begins to return. Carefully, like stepping onto ice, testing if it can hold you. It does. Soon, every evening has sound. Not celebrations, something quieter. A shared breath, a promise. Old songs are remembered. New ones are made up. Children dance barefoot in circles. Elders sit close, nodding with tired eyes. You and your sister write a song together, just a few lines. She hums the melody. You play it with sticks on the garden fence, keeping rhythm. Do you think people will still sing this in 50 years? She asks. Maybe you say, if we teach it to them. So you do. You teach it to the neighbor's child, who teaches it to her brother, who sings it to a passing merchant. One day a traveler whistles it by the listening tree. You smile. It has left you, and that's how you know it will last. One evening, the village gathers in the square. No one calls the meeting. It just happens. There's bread and soup passed around. Someone brings a jug of cider. The boy with the fiddle returns. He plays again, brighter this time, bolder. The moon rises over rooftops, golden and calm. And then your sister stands. She's trembling slightly, but her voice is clear. She sings. Her song is low at first, uncertain, but she finds her footing. And soon, the whole square is still. And she finishes, the silence is deep. And then applause. Gentle, fierce, unstoppable. She laughs, a sound you haven't heard in months, but you carry that night with you. You carry the music, the hum of hope, the truth that even in the shadow of death, even in the quiet after heartbreak, there is still song, and song means memory. Song means courage. Song means we are still here. The letter came on a Wednesday. It's folded neatly, with no return address, no stamp. Just your name on the front, in handwriting you hadn't seen in over a year. A small, careful script that felt like it had been written with trembling fingers. Your mother found it in the hollow of the gatepost, tucked where the ivy grows thick. She didn't open it, just stared at it for a long moment before calling you from the garden. When you saw the writing, your hands went cold, because you knew who it was from. And you weren't sure you were ready. You didn't open it right away. You walked with it to the well garden, sat on the bench under the tree stump lantern and let it rest in your lap. The envelope was thin. Your breath was uneven. You finally broke the seal. Inside was a single page, lined slightly crumpled, written with a soft graphite pencil. The edges were smudged, but the words were clear. I don't know if this will reach you, or if it should. I've been gone too long, not asking to come back. I just want you to know, I'm sorry. I ran because I thought leaving would stop the pain from spreading. I thought I was doing the right thing. Silence is a cruel shield. I saw what happened in the village. I saw the sky darken and the birds vanish, and the fire come down. I wasn't there to help, but I carried the sound of your voice with me. Even now, it echoes. You once told me, don't disappear unless you're planting something. So I planted myself in the far north. I worked with people who didn't speak my language, in a place where the snow erases roads each night. But something grew there too. A version of me that knows how to stay, that wants to come home. If you ever want to see me again, come to the mountain on the first day of frost. I'll be waiting. But if you don't come, I'll understand. This letter's not a plea, it's a thank you. Thank you for not hating me, for keeping your fire lit, and for letting me remember the sound of your voice. Elle, you read it 3 times before folding it again. Your sister said nothing when you showed her, just placed her hand on your shoulder and squeezed it once. That night, you didn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because something in you had shifted, as though a stone had been lifted from the edge of your chest. Remembered the last time you saw her, the way she stood at the edge of the bridge, saying nothing, the way she vanished around the bend like a ghost who chose to haunt somewhere else. You didn't know if you'd go to the mountain. You knew this. You would write back. And in that moment, you realized something extraordinary. You weren't afraid anymore of voices from the past, because yours had finally grown strong enough to answer. It came quietly, like a hush over the world. No great storm, no sweeping winds, just a stillness in the air as the leaves hardened with delicate frost, and the ground shimmered silver beneath the trees. You woke before the sun. The letter had not left your thoughts since the day it arrived. And though you hadn't told anyone, not your sister, not your mother, you had made a quiet decision. You would go. The mountain she spoke of wasn't far, but it was steep, ancient, and half forgotten by most people now. Pilgrims once climbed it long ago, before the wars, to leave ribbons tied to the old trees near its summit. Wishes, they were called, or promises. You didn't tie a ribbon. But you packed your letter in your coat pocket and set off before first light. As you walked, the frost crunched softly under your boots. Birds stirred in the branches, tentative, sleepy. The sky glowed pale blue. For the first time in months, you felt something close to peace. Halfway up, your lungs burned, but you didn't stop. 3/4 of the way, the wind picked up, but you wrapped your scarf tighter and kept moving. At the top, the path widened into a narrow ridge. Trees bowed over it like quiet sentinels. You stepped through them, and then she was there. She sat on a flat stone, wrapped in a thick coat, her boots dusted with ice. Her eyes lifted the moment you emerged, and for a moment, just when neither of you spoke. Then, you came, she said. Her voice was softer than you remembered, worn at the edges like a threadbare blanket, but warmer too. You wrote, you replied. She stood slowly. The years had carved something new into her, something older, yes, but stronger. She stepped forward. I'm not who I was. Neither am I, you said. And then, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, she smiled. Not a wide smile, not a perfect one, but real. You didn't hug. Not yet, but she sat beside you on the stone. And the two of you looked out over the valley below, white-capped and shining in the early light. There was so much to say, but for now, silence was enough. Because some bonds, once broken, don't return the same. They return stronger, not by blood, but by choice, by frost, by fire, and by forgiveness. The next morning, you awoke in a room you hadn't seen in years. The same wooden beams ran across the ceiling, though they sagged more now. The windows, still streaked from old rains, let in a buttery shaft of morning light. Your old boots sat by the door, dust-covered. And your sister's scarf, the one she knitted before you left, still hung from the bedpost. It felt like stepping back in time. Downstairs, the house buzzed with quiet energy. Someone had lit the hearth, and the scent of bread baking wrapped itself around you like a blanket. Your mother, older, smaller now, smiled when you walked in. No words were exchanged, just a nod. She set another bowl at the table. It was enough. After breakfast, the village square began to stir. It was the festival of lanterns, an ancient tradition meant to drive away the cold, honor the dead, and light a path for the living. You hadn't been home for it in so many years. You almost forgot what it felt like. Children ran laughing through the lanes with paper lanterns shaped like foxes and deer. Elders placed candles inside carved turnips, humble cousins of pumpkins, and set them along the stone walls. Music began to hum in the distance, and the smell of roasted chestnuts and cider filled the air. As night fell, the entire village seemed to glow. Lanterns swung from every post. People stood in circles holding hands. Even strangers smiled at each other. And for once, you didn't feel like a stranger anymore. She was there too, not far, talking quietly with your sister. When her eyes met yours, she tilted her head toward the path leading into the woods. A quiet invitation. You followed. Together you walked beneath the lanterns strung between trees. The world around you dimmed, the crowd's noise fading until all that remained were your footsteps and the rustle of leaves. "Do you remember this place?" she asked. "We used to come here during the harvest, hide behind those rocks. Trade stories. And dreams," she added softly. She paused beside a tree. One of the old ones, the kind that remembered. From her coat she pulled out a ribbon. Faded blue, frayed at the edges. "I never left mine." She tied it gently to a low branch. "Now it's your turn," she said. You hesitated, but then reached into your coat, where her letter still sat, and tore a strip from the envelope. Carefully, you tied it beside hers. Two pieces of the past, left behind. As the wind moved through the trees, the lanterns swayed and flickered. You stood side by side, not needing to speak. Because in that moment, forgiveness became something solid, not just a word, but a light. One that would guide you home. You left the path in silence. The woods thickened as you walked, the lanterns thinning behind you until only the moon remained, casting long silver threads between the trees. Your boots whispered over fallen leaves, and the air smelled of moss, cold earth, and something older like memory. She walked beside you, not ahead, not behind, side by side. The path curved downward, and the trees gave way to a quiet clearing, a hollow, where willows grew in a perfect circle. Their branches trailed like fingers into a shallow pool, dark as glass. Moonlight shimmered on its surface. You remembered this place? Long ago, when the world still felt simple, you came here together. Not often, just once or twice, but enough to remember the hush. The way the water held the sky, the feeling that the grove was waiting. Tonight it was. She stopped at the water's edge, hands buried in her coat pockets. For a moment, neither of you moved. You watched your reflections ripple, then settle. "I came here after the fire," she said. Her voice was different again. Not fragile, just honest. Light. "The night I left, I sat right there. I thought if I stayed quiet long enough, maybe the world would start over." You looked at her, not at the woman you once knew, but the one standing now, shaped by time, by distance, by choices both of you had made. "I'm sorry," she said, "not just for leaving. For everything I didn't say before I did." You stepped closer, not to comfort, not to fix, just to be near. "I was angry," you said, "for a long time. Think I still am. In ways I don't fully understand, I know," she said. "Me too." The branches above swayed gently, like the grove was breathing with you. "But I want to start again," she said. If you'll let me." You didn't answer right away. Instead, you reached down and picked up a smooth stone from the edge of the pool. You turned it over in your hand. Solid, cool, real. Then you dropped it into the water. It sank with a soft plunk, sending out ripples that reached the edges of the pool and then returned. I don't want to erase the past, you said. I want to carry it differently. Her eyes met yours. And together, no, you nodded. She took your hand. Just for a moment, just long enough. Then, side by side again, you turned and left the grove behind. The water stilled, the branches stilled, but the light stayed with you, because some places hold more than memory. They hold beginnings. Winter came early that year. Snow drifted in thick, silent layers outside the windows, covering the village rooftops like soft wool blankets. Fires burned low in every hearth, casting long shadows on old walls. The air smelled of pine and smoke and something else, something older. Memory, maybe. You sat alone in the attic that evening, beside a small wooden box. It was your father's. The lock had long since rusted away, and the lid creaked when you opened it. Inside were scraps of time, a wooden comb, a faded cloth badge, a child's drawing of your family in colored charcoal, still smudged with fingerprints. At the very bottom lay a candle, unlit. You remembered it. He had carved it himself during one of the worst winters, when the sickness came through the valley. He never lit it then. He said it was for the darkest night. You held it in your hand now, years later, and understood what he meant. Downstairs, laughter echoed faintly. Your sister's voice, your mother's hum, the clinking of dishes. And hers, gentle, steady, unmistakably familiar. The family was whole again. Maybe not perfect, maybe not the way it was, but real. And real was enough. You lit the candle. It flickered once, then held steady, a soft golden flame. As you watched it glow, your thoughts drifted backward through time, to your village when it was half empty and full of silence, to your sister's fevered breathing in the night, and the herbs your mother brewed with shaking hands, to the moment you first saw her across the field again, older, changed, but not lost. And then to all the people who hadn't made it, faces you remembered in flashes. The baker who used to sneak you sweets, the school teacher with the warm hands, the friend who once dared you to touch the beehive. Names and moments, gone but never really gone. You stood up carrying the candle carefully down the stairs. The wind howled outside. The lanterns had all burned low and the square was empty now, silent beneath a sky of pale stars. But you stepped into the snow anyway, boots crunching softly, placed the candle on the village fountain where others had left sprigs of pine, small stones, and folded notes in memory. Light joined theirs. A flame among flames. Flickering not with grief but with gratitude. She came beside you then, no words, just her hand, brushing yours. You both stood there in the cold for a long time, your breaths rising like ghosts into the air, the candlelight warming your faces. And for the first time since everything changed, you realized something. You had survived. Not because the world was kind, but because you had chosen to stay kind in a world that wasn't. Because when everything burned down, you still carried a match. And when the night came, you didn't hide from it. You lit a candle and waited for the dawn.